here to interview you on what happened during 1963 to 1965.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you experience during the merger?
On the 16th September 1963, Singapore, Sabah and Sarawak, together with the Federal Malay States, become part of Malaysia. This is to fulfill the promise made by the PAP during the general elections in 1959, in which they secured 43 out of 51 what we call candidates. All civil servants, including police, armed forces, personnel, court judicials, come under the control of central governments. Singapore saw no economic advantage in merger, did not gain chance as have a common market. As a result, there were conflicts, racial tensions, and disagreement. Yes. Next one.
How do you feel towards the merger?
The merger was short like costly experience that brought into violence, conflicts with the Malays and the Chinese in Singapore, as well as the PAP and the federal governments. The UMNO leaders wanted to maintain supremacy. They were not happy with our then Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew's Malaysia. So, as a result, outbreak of the Chinese and Malays riots in July 21st and September 1964 worsened the existing tension. Curfew were imposed, and the reserve unit from the federal government were sent to contain the violence. Okay, next one.
What was the most memorable time of the merger?
The most memorable time was our Lee Kuan Yew speech, a press conference on the 9th of September 1965. He fought back in tears as he formally announced the separation and attained full independence for Singapore. Saying every time he looks back on the moment when he signed the agreement with Civil Singapore from Malaysia, it was a moment of anguish because all his life he had believed in merger and unity of these two territories. It was also a blessing because if not because of the Tunku and the Lee Kuan Yew's secret agreement, Singapore won't have attained full independence as it was to have, because the British government were afraid that the communists might at any time override Singapore. Okay.
How did you cope with the merger?
Singapore will have to the autonomy of the education and labor, and retain the larger proportion of the state revenue. The special position of the Malay citizens will be safeguarded. We managed to convince the Tunku that the Singapore citizens will become a federal national. Okay, the last one.
What was the bad part about the merger?
For Singapore, the merger with Malaysia have been a rough patch. They were due to series of fundamental clashes between the PAP government in Singapore. The merger had adverse reaction from Indonesia and the Philippines because both of them laid claims on the Borneo territories. The bombing of the McDonald House in March 1965 caused 3 dead and 33 injured. Okay?
Thank you for taking time for me to interview you. I appreciate it a lot.
It's good. It's a pleasure.
I have seen a second perspective of Singapore's history and one of its turbulent times we had in Singapore when we had to merge with Malaysia to form a United Malayan Federation, and how the people lived during that time, which was a very hard struggle, especially in the later parts before our separation, where there was racial tension and when there was martial law.
The merger had both good and bad effects on Singapore. The most memorable time of the merger is Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew's speech on 9 September 1965. He cried while announcing the separation. He cried because he always had believed in merger and unity of Singapore and Malaysia. It is actually a blessing because of Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew and the Tungu's secret agreement. It let Singapore attain full independence because British governments were afraid communists might override Singapore. During the riots between Chinese and Malay, it tells me that they didn't get along so well because of political reasons, such as not many people hating our country's Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. It makes me feel angry because Singapore and Malaysia are merged into one, so they are supposed to get along, not to fight over some reasons, like politically. Well, Singapore has gone a lot of change through most of the races getting along. There's not so much fights already. In fact, we rarely see any fights between races.